Cummings, and once again, this is the Citizens Community Forum. It's that time when we get together and we discuss various issues here in Trinidad and Tobago. Our objective is always to have an engaging, interactive, and a civil discourse, and in so doing, help develop a culture of peace and understanding through constructive dialogue and, yes, citizens' participation. Our guests are persons who express views, opinions, and perspectives of their own, and sometimes may not necessarily be that of the FBN network, the Citizens Community Forum, or that of the host. Our topics are also wide-ranging. Discussion at times may be emotionally charged, but surely we can always find common ground and learn from each other, irrespective of our differing views. Now, the issue of food security on the global landscape has become one of renewed attention in recent weeks. If one is only to look at what has been shaping the national and global conversation, we've seen a literal violent fight for sovereignty as well and territorial space between two of the world's most powerful nations, Russia and the Ukraine. And some may describe this as a dangerous engagement of military adventurism, while food security and nutrition are left at the back burner. Now, as members of the global community, many have been caught up in a confusing vortex of fear, uncertainty, and a certain, tension are also rising. We've been seeing all that's been happening both here, locally, regionally, and internationally. But there must be some lessons to be learned for Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean. And even though we in Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean may be described as that little dot on the world map, we are not immune to external shocks, and especially when we're talking about food and food security. At this time, on the Citizens Community Forum, our topic, food security, creating a buffer for Trinidad and Tobago in the face of the Russian-Ukraine crisis. And to help discuss the issue, I have with me Mr. Balaram Maharaj, CEO of the Arima Discount Mart, ADM, and someone who is also a past executive member of the Supermarkets Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Maharaj also comes with many, many years of experience in the marketing and food distribution business. Mr. Maharaj, welcome to the Citizens Community Forum.
Oh, good evening, and it's an honor and pleasure to have me here, and good evening to your listening audience. Once again, thank you very much.
And thank you, Mr. Maharaj, for taking the time to sit with us, albeit, through your busy schedule. I wanted to sort of, get the opportunity to talk with you, Mr. Maharaj, because I know that you're one of the persons in Trinidad and Tobago who's had years, many, many years of, involvement in the distribution and the marketing of food, food security for Trinidad and Tobago, the region, the world. And we've been seeing and hearing so much in the last few weeks and the last several months as well. And even right here in Trinidad and Tobago, as food prices soar and one wonders, where are we going and what can be done to sort of help arrest this situation. I want to start out the discussion this evening, Mr. Maharaj, by probably you giving us maybe some recommendations as to how we can, as a people, be talking about food security. What is there in your view that can be done to arrest this rising, level in the price of food in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, with your permission, and a listening audience, permit me just to go back about 3 years ago and then come to the present. And when I go to talk to the future, I will go to solutions. So in order to reach solutions, we must get the problems.
All right.
Problems started about 20, 30 years ago, when people wrote books like Al Gore on climate changes. I don't think people take him seriously, but there were big effects on the production of food with the climate changes. I have learned in San Susi, Toco, and as a little boy, I was in the food growing business and planting food. there was a shop on San Souci Beach, they call Edwin Shop. About 3 years ago, when I went, there was no more Edwin Shop. The sea has taken clean off from the waves of the sea. That disappeared. And I have many other things in Tobago where we have a home and the erosion was coming in and we put some stone and we have to put more again. So climate change 3 years ago started the drop in the production of food. 2 years ago, here came in the COVID-19, and that had so much restriction. The world economy was affected, and the growing of food and the manufacturing of food items, packaging, etc., byproducts of base products, like from dairy products, to get ghee, etc. And because of the shortfall and the regulations were all over from manpower. One will understand if there's shortfall in manpower, like Trinidad, everything was closed down. They caused a big drop in food.
I see.
And I think by then food went down to about 50-60%. The come closer to the present now is the Ukraine, Russia. And it worsened. It's like putting petrol in fire. Embargo. One of the persons we are not paying attention to, China started buying food with a vengeance. And their reasons is we must not have empty plates for our people. Well, embargo started, and I suspected because many, all before 2 years ago, and I wanted an item, let's say I want 10 cases of beef, 10 containers of beef, or 5 containers of cheese, or 20 containers of this. I will get it and I'll say, look, I don't want you to give me one price because I'm buying 5, I'm trying to get a little better price.
But on the wholesale market, yes.
Yeah, because one container might be, let's say, $100 a case, but by 5 in US dollars, if you save $2 a case, is a lot of money. A case normally have 55,000 and a container 55,000 pounds. So we have to negotiate. We had the power to negotiate. But the good thing, Steve, I don't know, Steve or Stephen?
Stephen, yes.
Stephen, thank you. There's no longer that. When you buying and China start to buy, they actually tell you in words, look, stay quiet, little boy. Let's deal with you. You're buying 1,000 containers. We cannot compete with that. And the question you asked about rise in prices, you have to add something to that.
Yes, and how can we arrest that and how we can, but go ahead, I would allow you to develop that point, yes.
The availability, if you could get, plus the rise, the high prices increases. Now, cooking oil is 125% more. Dairy products is by June 50%. Corned beef and meat products 100%. From 2 years ago to now, it's I don't know where will it end. And I repeat myself, not only rise in prices, availability of the product. Now, if somebody say, well, boy, we have beef, $2 a pound, you want a container, that's the price now. I say, look, could you get a price to me for 5? Less than an hour, you will come back and say, sorry to tell, it's allowed. So, negotiated price now is a thing of the past. We don't know when everything is up, it will come back. So that added to that, trade went up in China from 3 to 4,000 to 23 to 24,000 US dollars for freight.
Right. So we've been seeing increases on the international market where freight is concerned, and those charges. But go ahead. Yes.
So the time has come now that we are protected by duties, tariffs, and so on, surcharge with the CARICOM trade agreement. And maybe some people know, maybe some people don't know how it is done by our government, not the government in America or Canada. I'm not too sure about England, etc., and Europe. So an item costs for a container of beef $100 for the cargo, and the freight is 23,000 US dollars. This government adds them together and put a tax on it.
All right.
So I think the time has come in order to save ourselves and the middle and low income people. Government have to do some reconsideration, innovative, creative thing to cut down the prices because of the fact we never made arrangement to grow food that we really eat in this country. We talk about it every time there's a decline in oil prices.
And we hear this around budget as well. Whenever the budget is presented.
Always,
Yes.
Diversification is like a calypso.
Yeah. Well,
They sing it.
Well, we're going to get to diversification in a short while, Mr. Maharaj, because I know that I want to also touch on the business of agriculture. But before we get there, you're saying here now, and the question was, how do we move towards impacting on reducing, these high costs? And you're saying that that there has to be some sort of proper planning, policy, and the coming together.
Well,
I suppose I'm getting from you that it takes really, a whole of society approach where the stakeholders are also involved, because it is something that you can't really control if you were to operate in, let's say, a silos type situation. No one entity or no one sector in Trinidad and Tobago can really impact on the reducing of food prices because of what's happening on the international market. But before we go further, food prices. I'm seeing a statement here which was sent in to me by university economist Dr. Roger Hussain, and he's saying that food prices increased at about 12% in 2 years, just in 2 years. And we're talking Trinidad and Tobago. And he's saying that, if your one's food expenditure bill in December, for example, 2019 was $3,000 per month, and in December 2021, that would have gone up to $3,360 or $3,360. At some point, at some time per capita, your income would have been or would have fell at about probably 9%. So that, the question remains as to, who is really, or what can we do? Who is really to really take the reins of this whole issue of seeking to impact and bring the prices, at an affordable level, Mr. Maharaj?
Well, I love the word you use, affordable, and I always talk about the middle and the lower income people because those are one close to my heart, and those are most of my customers. They have to handle this situation now. As I mentioned to you earlier on, that we have three situations that cause it. I wouldn't bother to go back into it. And is the government of the day have to be very fair and consider what is really going on. To elaborate on that, I don't know where these, with due respect to them, they get in 12 and 15 and 30% from. I will go on and tell you, like milk powder, if you could get it now, these items are way beyond 100%, 50%, 60%. And the increases where you're seeing 8 and 10 and 12%.
So there have been an acceleration in the percentage margin over the
Over
years.
the last 2 years, eh? And
Yes.
I'd go back to 2 years ago. So what we have to do, I suggest to the government of the day, and I really think the time has come. They should listen to people and don't try to protect like the finances and their friends and family.
Okay.
They have to consider the middle and lower income people to avoid starvation and to put food on the table. All these, the whole CET, which is CET,
It's
Common
tariff.
External
Yes.
Tariff.
Yes.
They have to revamp that. For instance, we buy sugar from Ghana. Sometimes they don't have enough. We buy granite from away, but they have no tax in it. But away you have to pay, I think, 40% on sugar from other countries beyond. That have to sit down together and where, because it's not a matter of we have in the Caribbean. You have to go outside
Right.
and face with these
Negotiate. Yes.
surcharges and taxes and other tariff. So we're talking about a country from 1970. Our family was big exporters of coffee and cocoa. We started in the bowels. My grandfather, who was an indenture,
But but
my
that's
father.
yeah. But that's not, it's not what's happening now in terms, because the dynamics of Miss Marge would have changed, over the many years, and more so based on what has been happening recently in the international market. And we did start out our discussion on seeing that what's been happening there out in Europe, the war between Ukraine and Russia. But I just wanted to add to that as well. Recently, even the Association of Trinidad and Tobago table egg producers, you would know very well, said that the price of eggs would soon increase as a result of, they're looking at some 6% rise in animal feed prices internationally, and again impacting on that particular stock. And let me go, I was also looking at some information on the international market as well. They're also saying that projections on the state of food supply and production stock. The International Committee of the Red Cross only today, warned that a major hunger crisis in Africa is going largely unnoticed, as the world focuses on the Ukraine-Russia crisis. And it also says that there are some 346 million people, more than 1 in 4 persons across Africa, are suffering from alarming hunger, and that number will probably rise in the coming months. And we're not just talking about Africa, Mr. Maharaj. We're talking about the world. As I suppose every country in the world will be impacted in some way on what's happening out there, and including Trinidad and Tobago. So where do we go? How do we put a cap on this continuous rise in prices?
There's nothing can be done with that. We have to talk about it. Prices is there for a long while. And talking about look out for 100% to 80% to 90%. 50 might be you get away with it. When I was about to tell you about the cocoa thing, I just wanted to make my point. When 1970, when oil came in, they dropped cocoa like a hot potato. It went down to 2%. Now, I made mention to Ghana and like the listeners, I said, don't be fooled. Buy the oil and gas. Take your oil and gas money, which I said to John Ryle and all these fellas before, and get it into technology and subsidies on production. I give them models like what is going on to Europe and different parts of the world. And go back to how we used to do it in Trinidad. There was a marketing board where when you plant, you get a subsidy. Whether bananas, they get 5 cents, they get a penny a pound subsidy, encouraging the farmers with the roads and all these things. Now, permit me, Stephen. We don't grow rice again. We had a certain percentage, that's like 2% now. They take Mr. Rahal, I beg him on my knees, leave the sugarcane, please, leave the factory. He said he's not making money. I tell you, they're making no money because of the amount of stealing going on and subsidizing the factories. So those two items we will never be able to produce. I don't know if that's the direction you want me to go. Dairy products, we don't have enough cow to do anything in the byproducts or milk powder. Well, wheat is badly hurt. Apart from the war and the buying up of it, they're damaging the fields in Ukraine now. And they are big in wheat.
Yes.
Too. Don't look out for peas and beans in this country. You will never see split peas, red beans, or anything here. So I can elaborate on that now. We get some of that from Belize. And we have been buying up to last year. Then all of a sudden, the government of Belize said they don't export. So why? Because they have to keep all for their local consumption. So peas and beans, you have to go out of Trinidad, and in some cases, like red beans and black eye, you pay 40%. So I'm just telling you the problems or prices, but the parallel to that is the availability.
Okay. So
corn is important.
right. So apart from the prices, you're talking about availability, and it's interesting that you mentioned that area there with in terms of local production. And before we continue, we just like to remind our listeners that this is the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings. I'm talking with Mr. Baliram Maharaj. He is someone who has had years of experience and in the food and marketing of food and distribution business here in Trinidad and Tobago, throughout the region and throughout the world. Someone who has a lot of knowledge and history of where we were, I suppose, 5, 10, 15 years ago in terms of our food stock here. And we're talking with Mr. Maharaj there. So Raj, the issue of agriculture in Trinidad and Tobago, one has been, we've been talking about this business of diversification, and every year we have a budgetary allocation that goes towards agriculture. But many people who have been looking at the budgetary allocation would tell you that we have not gotten, as a matter of fact, agriculture would have probably been among the least in terms of, whatever state funds coming.
Budget.
But apart from that, certainly, how do we get that part of our sector, the agricultural sector, going? Because clearly we can't depend on government, allocation on a yearly budget to boost that particular sector. What is really the problem with agriculture in Trinidad and Tobago and food production from that standpoint? What is your view on that?
Well, I think I'm still involved in production of agriculture. I do also in the agribusiness, and we take a firm decision last year. We started packaging cassava because I'm seeing that people, if it's one thing we could survive on, like the first people, there's a lot of things we could do on cassava. We did a test and we saw, you asked me for solutions now, eh?
Yes.
Solutions. Technology is very, fertilizer and all these sort of things is very expensive. Water is a problem. Bringing in, like, if we use them for cassava chips and potato chips, we have to face a competition with potato chips. Now, to produce a bag, we buy potato about $7 to $8 US for 50 pounds. That we can never produce potato and onion and garlic like that. That is about $2 or $3 a pound to produce that in Trinidad. So we already
is it an issue with labor or land space, Mr. Maharaj? When you say we can't produce,
labor is one, land space is one, and technology is one. And the cost of fertilizer is one, three things. So, hence reason I can bring up the point of I always talked about it on radio and TV. We must make friends now in this crisis and consider the economic word of absolute comparative advantage. Now, as we buy rice from Ghana, is one of the way we could capitalize on this economic word they call because they have the land, they have the water, and they have labor. But what they didn't have is diesel because electricity is not spun throughout Ghana. It's a big piece of country.
Yes.
But I spoke to the government about government butter some diesel with your rice and try to spend. We have to pay them in US dollars, you know.
But you
Or we
know,
have
yeah.
to
But you know,
go
the
ahead.
conversation is also shifting there, when you talk about diesel, Mr. Maharaj, because we are into the age of renewable energy, and you know, one would wonder how viable that might be, seeing that we are, and we did touch on climate change, you know, earlier on in our discussion. You know, I guess we have to look at where it is more cost effective for Trinidad and Tobago and other, you know, islands in the region, as to whether, you know, we go the way of renewable energy in terms of getting that particular sector up and running.
Well, I think you missed my point there. Like, can I permit me to say it back slowly? Yeah? A couple of years ago, even now I buy a lot of rice. So most of my rice come from Ghana. I have to pay US. If we had got into a marriage with them, I bring in the word to local word instead of what you call comparative advantage. They have the land, they have the water, we have the diesel. All I said just now, use our diesel, send it across, and get rice for it as a model. And they also have sugar. The
Yes.
areas up there is no electricity. So to crank the machine, they will and still using diesel. You see, that is what I'm saying.
Okay.
You raise the question, what is the answer? We talk about joining with your neighbors, whether they're home neighbor and growing your garden or baking or whatever and sharing, buying wholesale and divide them, saving, stretching your dollar. And in the case of CARICOM, the government have to revisit the taxes,
All
the
right. So
duties.
right. So we are seeing where CARICOM also has a role to play in arresting, you know, not just high food prices, but also from that very same point that you mentioned, the availability as well. But of course, you know, one would see clearly, Mr. Maharaj, that when we talk about availability, if there is an increase in production, the availability, you know, will be there, at least, you know, to a point where you can be at a self-sufficient, you know, at a certain level in terms of self-sufficiency. But certainly, you've made the point before that we do face some challenges here. Apart from just, you know, one particular area, there are so many. It's a sort of a multi-pronged approach that we have to be looking at to ensure that we do have the kind of food security that we would want to see here in Trinidad and Tobago and by extension the region. But I also wanted to ask you as well, Mr. Maharaj, your view on this online shopping, you know, and how that has been impacting consumers' tastes and choices, because it's not, you know, a period where we were not aware of the internet, for example, and a lot of things now are being done online, e-commerce, what have you. Do you think that we have been leveraging as we ought to, even in this technological age? I mentioned talking about consumers' tastes and choice patterns.
Well, we already fall in line with that because for COVID, when there were lines, we advertised you could call in your goods in a WhatsApp, and by the time you didn't have to come inside the grocery, it was outside ready for you by your car. So now we have to fall in line with the technology. Permit feature technology. In 1997, I went to India with the government then, with the Pandey government, and they took me to Bangalore. And when when I saw the setup they had with technology, it was amazing. Today, India receive 51% of the income from technology. So that's how important it is. Dependent on oil and gas, and they are self-sufficient on food. They are the biggest milk exporters in the world. So they have land, they have water, they have people, 1.4 people. But when they step aside with the movie industry, they're big in the technology, and now my good friend and people, they're big in pharmaceutical.
All right.
So diversification, they saw it 50 years ago. They did it. We stuck with oil and gas. And every time the oil prices go down, they started one calypso again. Diversification, diversification.
All
If
right.
it gone back up, you're hearing it again.
All right.
But
Well, I'm
I
sure.
said it.
Well, I'm sure we're going to hear that sound again, Mr. Maharaj,
No, well,
before too
very
long again.
soon,
Before too
I
long
want to
again.
bring it the attention to you. And we read it. You know, America, big reserve in Alaska, and they have it, and they start to release the reserve,
Yes.
which it could be a possibility if the gas prices might stabilize or go down,
All right.
because they have a lot of stuff.
And of course, we need energy to boost food production as we have been working with that for many years. And well, at this time, Mr. Maharaj, we just want to we have to go to a break now, and we will come back and continue the discussion shortly.
Thank you.
You tell me something, Mr. Cummings. You are seeing asparagus selling in one of those high-end supermarkets. We can't see local tomatoes. So then we come in, we spin it up in mud. I'm not talking about them farmers in Bussup, Marino and Old Vans, or they're only complaining about land and they want land out of... No.
You know something that bothers me? People want change and cannot get it peacefully. They resort to violence in order to get that change. Look at the history of the world, and you see that is what is taking place.
The difference is that a country like the United States could simply print money, trillions of dollars of support, social support, business support. They're talking about another $2 trillion. So they could print money. We can't do that. If we do that, then we get inflation. So our deficit is problematic.
2011, which I looked at, and that actually came out of the Central Statistical Office. Do we have any updated data?
Actually, I was very impressed by your statistical knowledge, Mr. Cummings. Yes, the last census was in 2011, and there would have been population and housing estimates subsequently, and the figures remain about the same.
What are some of those other pressure points?
Persons who are coming in with problems. Nobody's coming in there to talk about how wonderful their day was. And so the things that show up a lot is a lot of co-parenting issues, figuring out how, after we separated, how to still care for the child well, issues around domestic violence, issues around child abuse.
Discussions on health, leadership, governance, crime, education, and social justice. Every Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m. The Citizens Community Forum. Your host, Stephen Cummings.
Welcome you back again to the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings, and I have with me at this time on the program Mr. Balaram Maharaj. He is the CEO of ADM. Of course, Mr. Maharaj has been in the business of food distribution, marketing throughout not just Trinidad and Tobago, throughout the region and throughout the world. Someone who has a wealth of knowledge and information as to how the dynamics, work when it comes to the business of food. I can't put it, simpler than that. Mr. Maharaj, welcome back.
Thank you.
I wanted to look at the issue of education on this business of understanding the importance of not just producing food, but the science as well. It has been said that for many years that agriculture has not gotten the kind of traction, especially among young people. They see it as back-breaking work. They see it as laborious type of activity. What do you think we can do, Mr. Maharaj, to sort of encourage our young people to get involved in the production of food, to see food and its production as a career, something that would be something for not just the future generation, but something that is sustainable and a career path for which they can go into?
Well, if I just go backwards for 2 minutes to bring my point, it was only yesterday we were talking about this thing. What indentured labor came down here, and it will appear that one intentions those indentions had was to ensure a better life for the children and the children to come. Education was one, and trading was another thing. And the idea of technology would have come from education. But did government, upon governments come, we beg them, without technology and the cost of fungicide, etc., is really unbelievable. So, I mean, when you buy now, it's thousands of dollars you have to pay for this thing. Where I have one plot of land in Arriva there, where the government have a substation pulling the water from a well, and I have several pools I build for the dry season. And when that time comes, no water. So growing food without water, without labor, without massive land and technology, we start with a disadvantage. And the same thing is parallel to manufacturing goods, We tried to do cheese in Trinidad. It do make no sense bringing down 90% of a finished product, and you have to bring the majority from a wheat and only use labor, which is expensive here, and maybe water and electricity. These are the setbacks we have. Government have to find themselves involved with incentive on production, like what is done in England. When we buy English cheese here, there's a thing they call a bill of lading, and customs stamp it. We have to send it back, and the farmer will get a certain subsidy. I am saying here, for God's sake, I hope it gets in the correct hands. Government, get cheap loans, give people the lease, some kind of arrangement for subsidies in the your bill for fungicide and these things. Most important, go back to how it was done with cocoa, coffee, bananas, etc. You buy it into the marketing board, in this case, they have NAMDEFCO. You give them a small receipt, and you give them a small incentive on the production, and you'll have proper records.
Right. Because, again, going back to that question again, what can we do to make agriculture more attractive, to young people? Because that's where the future is, Mr. Maharaj. People would tell you that there has to be that kind of that system whereby that bridging the generational gap. Of course, we know what has happened over the many decades. We are no longer in the sugarcane fields. We are no longer in the cocoa fields as we were decades ago. And one wonders, what can be done now to kind of engender that love and for young people, and attracting them back into those sectors. We may not have sugar in the way that we would have had it many decades ago, but certainly you mentioned the point of technology that possibly can be one of those areas.
Well, you wouldn't believe the amount of fish and lobster and shrimps is grown in pools with technology.
Which
I
is
went
something
there.
that young people can get involved in. Yes.
These are, yeah, but it's not the kind of like working in the fields. But that is one area. I went to, I was afforded a trip to New Zealand. There were over 2,000 cows and they only had 5 people working there. Technology. A jeep go with the light and they blow their horn. And they get in the line, no kicking, no fighting, no cursing. But they get in the line and it goes around a big circle, and they have 5 people alone taking care of 2,000 cows.
Right. So we've seen what technology can do to the industry and to the sector. I also wanted to, if you can reflect a bit, Mr. Maharaj, and we just want to remind our listeners again and our viewers that this is the Citizens Community Forum. I'm speaking with Mr. Balwan Maharaj. He's the CEO of ADM, and of course, someone who has had many years of experience and work in the food and distribution business in Trinidad and Tobago, throughout the region and throughout the world. Mr. Raj, when we look at Trinidad and Tobago, over the last 2 years plus, we have, the entire world, as a matter of fact, been plunged into a global pandemic. How damaging, and by extension, do you see us being able to get back to that point of production levels, probably pre-2015 production levels? Because when you look at the data, there was in fact, an increase in our production where food is concerned. But if you look within the last few years, we've had rising, food import bill, which seems to be going just up and up and up. Do you envision at any time that we would get back to some semblance of where we can, say, well, at least we are able to manage our food import bill here in Trinidad and Tobago?
I don't think it's hard to get back, but it has to be done in a holistic point of view. Government have to get involved. When I talk, let's take an item like you go to one of these chicken and chips place. That chips alone, we use about 100 containers in Trinidad at least a month. We pay 5% to bring it in. If we use that as a model, in order to encourage the farmers who is growing cassava and sweet potato, which is a better eating food, then it absorbs less oil in it.
Yes, and we can talk about food nutrition, but go ahead, yes.
But then they put a bigger tax than the 5%. Let's consider that potato chips is a fancy item. I'm not saying to encourage tax, but the point is, what I'm trying to drive home, we take the tax and bring it into the plantation in the Ministry of Agriculture to help subsidize the farmers with technology and to get what we call in farming more yield. So, for instance, right now there is something we can use, a new way of planting cassava. We normally get about 10, 12, 13 pounds on one tree. That medication, or what they call it, the fertilizer, if you soak that plant in it, you're sure you're going to get 30 pounds twice. But who will help pay for that? These are very, very costly items. Now, and it needs water. You have to have your water there. So if your pond dry up, it's a problem. So you need guarantee market for these things, that when you have a glut in the market, you wouldn't want to leave it in the field. It must be done in a holistic way, with the government not taking the tax money and putting it into the funds, but taking it and giving back some to the farmers on the fancy items, strawberries, whether it's grapes, apples.
Well, we talk about luxury items, but yes. Yeah.
to put the tax on it and put it straight into agriculture. We need that badly. Use it to build the roads, use it to give the people the land, the leases. They have to come out there because maybe in certain areas where the land is flat, you talk about laborious work. Let them people start to use waka and all these sort of things. They have to pay for them, they have to get diesels and all sort of things. Government have to work hand in hand. We all in this together. We don't want to come like Africa and have people without food. We market the cassava, encourage people. I am not saying we will push it down the throat, but a good cassava and a good soup or mixed with some kind of oil down, and the flour is better, cassava flour. And sweet potato doing just as good because that's what we could grow here.
All right, but again, Mr. Maharaj, you're saying that we do have a problem with land space as well as labor, and that impacts on the production side of it. But let me just there's some information here that I'm also referencing from the Ministry of Trade and Industry. It says that it continues to actively monitor local and global food prices. Now, the ministry, is that ministry, that line ministry, that is charged with certain responsibilities when it comes to to our food import bill and what have you. They are saying that there are some 118 items which form part of the basket of goods. Of what we call basic food items, and they have estimated that over the last 2 years as well, the average increases in prices have been approximately 9.7%. Now, this is more recent. This is a more recent percentage point than what I referred to a little earlier on by Dr. Roger Hussain. Now, the Consumer Affairs Division, it is also saying that has estimated that locally the price of flour increased by 16% over the period February 2020 to February 2022. So again, some recent percentages there. Other items which increased during this period locally include vegetables, soya oil 42%, corned beef 40%, poultry 29%, infant formula 26%, milk 20%, red beans 16%. It goes on to talk about salt fish as well, 15%, rice 13%. So that what we have been seeing a pattern here, Mr. Maharaj, that at least the 10 percentage points up has been that marker, and in some cases even 16 and 26 and 42%. So we do have a threshold that we are seeing where these prices have been put at. And there was some time ago, you probably would remember, there was a commission, or was it a committee that was set up? It was called the Prices Control Commission, something to that effect. I'm trying to remember the name specifically. I don't know if you are familiar with that. That was set up during the Manning administration, and one wonders, what has happened to these instruments that've been set up to just. Is it that they've been set up to just monitor prices, or should there be more that can be done or should be done in terms of maybe a prices control council, Mr. Maharaj? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I want to believe I was a member of that board. It's 2008. It was set up by Mr. Manning when he had a function somewhere in Justice, and I spoke. And he paid good attention. He's one of the prime ministers, really worked well with the business people. And he had a good vision. And that commission had to report on a weekly basis what is going on. He kept a close eye on us to ensure that the prices were under control, and we accepted complaints from people, and we were the media to take it to him or the relevant ministry. But that is very, very important, Stephen, that we consider setting up advisory board now, because right away, urgently, like yesterday, to get food back and listen to all the problems we have to get back food and save any problems for starvation the way I'm seeing it here. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I want to be very careful. But I am telling you, to get goods is a problem. The prices is the next problem. And with China on this campaign, no empty plates.
Yes, that's
I am
adding. It's adding
I
to
am
the.
suspect.
It's adding to
I
the
am suspect.
Russia-Ukraine crisis
I
as we have
feel
it.
no. What I seen, I don't know. I'm not sure. I want to be very careful how I say these words now. Is that I don't know if it's getting around the embargo, something like that. The quantum of food they buying and we cannot get, and I am not the only one who's saying it. The little food production, world food production, has declined drastically.
Yes.
And when they are buying and paying more money, money is no problem. We will be hurting. I'm telling you. I ordered some ghee in November. I only get one container book, one ONE, and we're going into the April, May just now. We normally use about 10 containers for Diwali. You just can't get shipped. You can't get the items. And right now, New Zealand and Australia are going in by May, June, winter. And look out for a big short in milk powder.
All right. So
And
we're gonna.
all the byproducts. It will
Right.
be the worst.
All right. So we are going
Worst.
to have some challenges going forward with this whole business of food security here and in Trinidad and Tobago. And we just want to remind our listeners again that this is the Citizens Community Forum. Stephen Cummings, our topic this evening: food security, creating a buffer for Trinidad and Tobago in the face of the Ukraine-Russia crisis. And I have with me Mr. Baliram Maharaj, someone who has a wealth of knowledge and experience in the food distribution business. Mr. Maharaj, I wanted to touch a bit on the issue of foreign exchange, and I know that of course, you know, the Trinidad and Tobago is tied to the US dollar. Many years ago, we have, or probably more recently, probably in the last 2-3 years, we've had that call again, and we're seeing it, you know, even now, today in 2022, for an ease in the foreign exchange business coming from a lot of the different business sectors. How bad is it now where foreign exchange is concerned?
Well, it's not getting worse, but I saw a little ease up for the last, and I think the ease up came from not getting the availability of goods. Because definitely my total import has dropped drastically by having be able to get the goods. So, and again, I mentioned earlier on, I can't remember, but I spoke about buying rice from Ghana, getting the diesel across here, paying in TT dollars, and avoiding paying for sugar, rice, and these items from the CARICOM countries in foreign currency. You remember we have Republic there, Republic in Trinidad, Royal there, Royal here. I don't think it's any kind of big problem that's sitting interim way they could butter these goods through one bank. I deal with Royal Bank in Trinidad and they have Royal Bank in Ghana. I think my sugar, we could sell them some cheese and let the banks do the buttering and the
Right,
money
so
inside there.
intra-regional trade, you're seeing where part of the solution for treating with this business of food security, food sufficiency, and keeping the prices at a manageable level is to have this, in a real sense, that the intra-regional type of activity going among our CARICOM neighbors and our CARICOM countries. But, you know, again, one wonders, Mr. Maharaj, you know, how is CARICOM treating with that very same issue that you've just referenced, are you hopeful that we would get to that point one day where we can really sit down as a Caribbean people and look at each other and say, well, this is what we need to do to help, ease us out of where we are today?
Well, I don't think there is good discussion going on there. I think there's a lot of pulling and tugging. Just like our local parliament here, opposing, and you can see some, if you just look at a recent statement by Ghana president and something
about
that
Trinidad
we've
and
fallen
Tobago.
apart.
Yes.
And
It doesn't help.
It
The
cannot
narrative
work.
does not help.
What you have to do, the Minister of Trade, when they go in there, work with one or two powerful businessmen there.
But we've had so many trade missions, in the past, Mr. Maharaj.
They work with a lot of things.
What do you think would be different now?
No, they need to really get some respectful, honest business people who could make a contribution of what is going on and go across there and say, time, you see this thing, but every January, the CARICOM trade agreement, they suspend certain items, saltfish, pigtail, and some of the basic things. I am saying suspend them for good. And if you feel that they should bring them back for tax, bring them back. Do not do it, because those are unnecessary taxes. Don't, right now, like cheese is suspended, then it ends at the end of the year, they have to go back and suspend it. These are the things they sit and spend a lot of time wasting. Donkey years, they suspend 12 or 15 items, right? And it's to take it off immediately with the opening. If there is need to bring it back, we'll bring it back. As for the taxes and so on sugar, rice, outside of CARICOM, I think the time have to be reducing those things a lot. Right? I remember going with another government, Kamala government, to Brazil. And I had a team with me, and we went to have the meeting with the beef. We don't buy beef from Brazil, no meat. And they say it's the foot and mouth disease. Only to find out over there, America buys it. What it does, America full-time vet over there, they stamp all the products, and they import the products with the American stamp on it.
Okay.
So we came back here with a presentation. The government liked it here. When it reached CARICOM, they tear it apart.
Okay, all right. So again,
I will tell you why they tear it. Because they were not included when we went and negotiated that from Trinidad.
Well, again, it comes back to that very same point that we are making, that there has to be a collective, among the CARICOM region, including Trinidad and Tobago, of course, so that we can go and, I suppose, present that one voice, to the world. They're not going to take us seriously, Mr. Maharaj, if Trinidad and Tobago goes there alone, or Guyana goes alone, or Jamaica. Certainly, there has to be a collective. But I also wanted to touch a bit, and before we go further, just want to ensure that our listeners are aware that this is the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings, talking with Mr. Balram Maharaj. Our topic this evening is food security, creating a buffer for Trinidad and Tobago in the face of the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Mr. Maharaj, we have just a few minutes before we end the program, but there are a couple of things, one or two questions I just wanted to have in before we end. There was a zero-rated list which was presented by the government, I think it was last year, that came somewhere close to the last budget that was presented. Would you like to see an expansion of that list? There were some basic items there, and some people had some concerns as to whether even what was zero-rated would have been in the interest of good health, of the good health of the nation.
Most definitely. I will want to believe that all basic food that they left out should be increased. I wouldn't say take out all, but you know the government needs some money now. But a lot of taxes have to come out of these things out the system, especially where food is concerned, because we are facing. I don't want to sound. I'm very factual. I told you because of the availability and the prices is one.
Yes.
You'll have money, but you can't get the goods. I think there are a lot of tax structures and surcharges. All right. Let's see how fast I can say this. They put 60% surcharge taxes on macaroni to protect one macaroni company. That is long time. That's days dead and gone. That is financiers, thy friends. You get America use wings from chicken and the breast. The rest is profit. They sell the leg and thigh for an average of 30, 35 cents a pound. CIF. If you multiply that by $7, it's about $2 and something cents a pound. They put 60% on it. And the people saying this is old meat. But Tyson's hundreds of containers a week they does. Because of the fact, when I spoke about comparative advantage, you have to get corn gone up. We have about $15, $16 a pound for chicken. How my people, my medium and low income people will eat when they have to pay 60% on leg and thigh that costing 35 cents a pound. I am feeling really hurt now. These are the things the government have to wake up to. Get creative, get real, and stop these things. Don't tell me I'm going to protect the local industry by 60% on macaroni. No. You want to protect them? Put 20% there. You want to protect the chicken industry? Anytime you go beyond 15 and 20%, it will make time producing it.
Right.
You're not competing.
Right. Another huge disincentive there, even for local producers and even young persons, I suppose. Looking on and wondering, whether that's a viable, business plan, as it were. But we're almost at the end of the program for the Seedless Marriage, and I wanted to have the just few minutes to allow you to give us some closing remarks and a message for Trinidad and Tobago, for the region. Where would you like to see us going as we talk about food security, food sufficiency for Trinidad and Tobago? What are some of the things that you would like to leave with our nation and our people today with respect to our subject matter this evening?
Well, the recap, my good citizens, I am in this business for over 65 years. I have already crossed my 80s, and I have a lot of experience, as you, Mr. Cummings, have beaten. I love to share it and guide young people. They always say a good leader is only a good leader if you make other good leaders, create good leaders. So the question is that we are seeing a dim view for food survival here. And first to begin, we must all respect, and there's a big campaign started in India. I'm happy to see Michael Montano. He and all is growing cocoa and also making a good chocolate. We can learn from him. And he's campaigning now, which I'm going to definitely join him. Save the soil, and we must understand if you dig the soil all the time, you will reach sand, and we will have good soil. Save that soil. Your cups, your plastic, find a way we can dump it and not get it back to the soil.
Okay.
And we should all start to hold hands together. And I will go out to the extent, forget enemies now, work together and plan things together. Try your own different growing
Hydroponics, yes.
hydroponics is the correct word. Sorry. They could do this in small scales
Okay.
and create some little things for themselves. But most important, we all in this together, keep the plastic, your cups and thing in some way, and don't dump it all in the sun and the sea. And, let us work together, whole hands,
Okay.
make back friends with your family and so on, and do things together, even buying food together,
Okay.
going together. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Maharaj, we have to leave it there at the moment, and we want to thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us inside the Citizens Community Forum. It's a discussion that I believe we'll have to continue at another time, because there's so many other areas we haven't touched on, and we will, extend that invitation certainly to you to continue that discourse with us, because when we talk about food security, when we talk about food sufficiency, and especially what is happening out there now in Europe, we have all the reasons here in Trinidad and Tobago to be concerned, and not just to be concerned, but to be able to put things in place, to be able to position ourselves as a people and as a region to safeguard and basically to put us into a strong sustainable way, so that we can continue to be healthy people. And also producing at the levels that we would all want to see. Thank you so much again for talking with us.
Well, thank you. One last thing for having me. And if I said anything that was offensive, I do apologize again. And I look forward to joining you anytime. God bless.
Thank you again, Mr. Maharaj. And this is the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings, Mr. Barrio Maharaj there talking with us on the topic food security, creating a buffer for Trinidad and Tobago in the face of the Ukraine-Russia crisis. I'm Stephen Cummings. This has been the Citizens Community Forum. See you next Wednesday.
It was a famous poet who once said, "They came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." Words there from famous poet Martin Niemöller, 1892 to 1984.